How do you turn your art into monthly reliable income by making the things you love? In this episode, Sander, known online as SuperPrints, reveals exactly how he pivoted from the volatile NFT market to building a sustainable 3D printing business, generating consistent monthly revenue. In case you're new here, my name is Mo, and this is the Mo Method, where we talk to creatives who have turned their passions into professions. In today's episode, you'll discover SuperPrints' VR sculpting workflow, the secrets to creating 3D printable miniatures that sell, and how he built a community of loyal customers. Sander shares the hard-learned lessons from his transition, practical strategies for creative monetization, and his blueprint for defining success as a digital artist. Whether you're looking for a way to generate consistent income from your art, or just curious about the future of digital creativity, this conversation shows you a proven path from artistic passion to successful business.
Hi, my name is Sander. I go by SuperPrints now. I started doing art online, digital art, 3D art online in 2021 through NFTs. And for the past few months, I've kind of switched to doing digital art through Patreon, so people can download my 3D files and 3D print them at home, mainly D&D miniatures. And
So let me ask you, how'd you get started first? Because you said it started with NFTs, but how'd were you always doing art? Was it kind of when the NFT craze came around, you kind of jumped on the bandwagon? How'd that get started?
No, I've always been doing art. I've always been doing YouTube as well as a small child. But my parents, they didn't really care. Well, they cared, but like they didn't think being an artist or whatever is a valid road to go down.
Yeah.
So I kept studying. I did product development, but all throughout, I definitely loved drawing and creating YouTube videos once in a while. I studied product development. I even started doing a PhD after my studies.
Oh, wow.
And the PhD was about, so it's relevant. The PhD was about VR and how being in VR makes you more creative. Or that was the hypothesis that I was going to prove. And then I kind of proved my own hypothesis because I really started, I've always loved designer toys like you. And I loved creating and 3D printing. I've always been 3D printing as well from the very beginning when it was just cheap Chinese 3D printers. So yeah, the PhD was about being in VR and being creative, and I started making stuff. And then at around the same time, the NFT craze really started. I was actually pretty early to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw online some people were selling 3D renders as NFTs, and I kind of just dropped everything, and I was like, I have to try this.
Yeah.
I dropped everything. I took a week off. Luckily, as a PhD student, you can drop everything for like a week. And I started making my own collection. I thought really hard about it. I made a website. I made like an online identity, and it kind of took off. And then
You saw success with NFTs?
Yeah.
Nice.
Very much. Yeah. I started making these floating head sculptures, and they were like part of a big collection. I think the initial appeal was that they looked really cool in like a square, in like a bunch of squares next to each other, and they also moved and rotated. They were animated. I think people really liked that. Did that for a few years. I even made my own Pokemon collection with NFTs, kind of. People could evolve them and stuff.
Cool.
I know NFTs have a bad rep, and like most of them deserve to have a bad rep. But my journey with NFTs was actually very wholesome.
Yeah.
But then I had to quit because like the platform, the whole thing about NFTs was that they gave secondary royalties to artists, and I really, really liked that. I saw that as like a Patreon 2.0 kind of thing, where it's like the community just holds on to your art, and we get a little something in return, and it's like this really beautiful community thing.
Yeah.
But then the royalties just Thanos snapped them away. They're just gone. And I was really upset about that. It ruined my whole business model, which was basically giving away free art to my biggest collectors.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it was time for something else. And I started doing Patreon, I think, last year. And it started slowly doing something. It started slowly taking off. And then when I switched to D&D miniatures, I really felt like there was a community there that I could foster. And it felt like it was the right move to completely switch to that.
Yeah, I'm curious with the Patreon thing. How did you kind of start with Patreon? Like, did you start a Patreon and then like that was the starting point, or did you already build a community first and then only start a Patreon once you had kind of a following? Or did you move over your NFT people into your Patreon?
Yeah, initially I tried getting as much NFT people into my community in my Discord. Getting some of them over to my Patreon, but sadly the overlap between people who buy NFTs and people who have 3D printers is pretty small.
Mm-hmm.
So a few of them joined. A few of them joined also just for support.
But your Patreon
really
from the
nice.
beginning has always been 3D printing oriented. Mm-hmm. That's kind of been the focus of the Patreon.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
nice. I mean, the 3D printing community is really cool. I mean, there's so much out there, first of all. And it's like it's a hobby that's really growing. Someone was saying the other day, or a few weeks ago at this point, that they really believe that 3D printing is really still in its infancy, and it still has a lot of space to grow. It's getting more and more accessible. I just recently I was in Germany for this like toy fair, and I met a company there called Toy Box Labs, and they make 3D printers for kids. For kids like ages 6 to 10, I think it's kind of like the age range they shoot for.
Okay.
They're really cute. They're small, super duper simple. Like really, like they're very much plug and play. You take it out of the box and it's ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
They have their own app that's like integrated into the printer. So you essentially can either download or purchase files from them and then like print them. It's really cool, and I think they're really doing a really cool thing, and it's a cool like way to kind of tap into that younger market. But in general, like 3D printing is getting so accessible. I mean, anybody can buy a printer. They're relatively inexpensive. And again, they're getting to a point where they're also just extremely easy to use. They're extremely plug and play.
Definitely.
Especially with FDMs, like the FDM printers that are being put out now are literally you take it out of the box and you can have it set up ready to go with zero knowledge beforehand. Within 10 minutes, and it's really cool. It's exciting to see kind of where things will develop. Moving forward. I wanted to ask you because one thing that was really interesting to me that really caught my attention with your work is that you do everything in VR. So I've had a bit of experience with Gravity Sketch. I know that's your go-to software. It's very cool. It's very cool what you can do. How'd you get into the idea of like VR sculpting? That's like a very unique angle.
Yeah, I think. So I studied product development. The idea definitely came from there. I think someone mentioned it once that you can 3D sculpt in VR, and then we got to try it. And then years later, when I started my PhD, I was looking for subjects to do it on, and I was interested in VR. I was looking at all the emerging technologies and something we could do with them, and like VR sculpting really stood out. And I think that's basically how I got into it. I started researching it, and Gravity Sketch came out as a product development, as like the main product development VR app for developing products. And they brand it really as like a concept art kind of thing where you just some lines, and you have a car, but then you remodel the entire thing basically on a PC. Which I think is a big mistake, because I don't use it for concepting at all. I use it for my entire design process. And I wish they would also include toy sculpting in their marketing things, because I think it's perfect for toy sculpting and stuff like that.
Yeah. A friend of mine uses it on occasion. And it's very cool because he was working on a project. And was working on like a vehicle for this project. It was cool because you could like go and sculpt this vehicle, and then you could actually go and like sit in the cockpit and like really get a feel for it. Like it's really cool what you can do, and it's like like obviously it has like that immersive kind of aspect to it. I'm curious to ask you, because you kind of touched upon it briefly a few minutes ago, and as you said that you think you're working with your PhD thesis that this idea that VR boosts creativity. Why do you think that is? Like, what's kind of your theory with that?
Because it's unlimited. You have unlimited access to, like, you want a cube over there, bam, there's a cube over there now. Like it floats. There's no gravity. You have a back button, which is huge. With like clay sculpting, you can also just make stuff, but you don't have a back button.
Yeah.
You can endlessly copy stuff. It's just a very but it's like the most sandboxy environment. You can literally do anything ever. And also the fact that you're isolated from the rest of the world is also a big thing, I think, or at least for me. Like, there's no distractions. You're just in a separate world. Because I've made a lot of artworks in the past years, and with NFTs especially, I needed to come up with new stuff. And it all needed to come from my brain. And it was pretty often that I didn't really know what I wanted to sculpt that day, or I was like in a creative low.
Yeah.
And I just put on the VR headset, start doing shit, and then something would come out of it. And some of my best work just comes from that. So I think, I think it really is. Maybe one day I'll finish that PhD and prove it with numbers, but I really think it does boost creativity.
That's really cool. That's a really good point that you brought up about the fact that it's so immersive that like you really aren't distracted. Like if you're on your computer using Blender, ZBrush, or any 3D software, all of a sudden you get a ping that somebody messaged you, and you go look at that, and then like it's very easy to get distracted. Whereas VR, you're really in it, like fully. Which is cool.
And I mean, compared to ZBrush is still like a CAD program with like menus, and you have to search like, okay, now I have to go get this tool, and you really have to think about everything you're gonna do in your head first, and then put it onto the computer. While in VR, you're really feeling like, once you get the hang of the controllers, the input is really simple. You're just using your hands. You're not really scrolling through menus or anything. You're just doing. It's much more like clay sculpting, where you're not really thinking about doing, you're just doing while you're thinking. I think VR is very much like that. And compared to like ZBrush and Blender, it's an entirely different world.
More interesting. What kind of headset are you using?
I've used all kinds of headsets. Right now I'm using the Quest Pro. It's behind me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
So it's the Quest Pro.
Nice. What are your thoughts on VR just in general? Like, 'cause it's one of those things that's been trying, I think, for a while to like break into the mainstream, and like obviously most recently with Apple's Vision Pro. And it hasn't been able to really break onto the scene, which like I can't really figure out why that is. I don't know. I've been like thinking about it a lot, because I was into VR for a long time. I'm not like an active user on a regular basis, but like I had a Samsung S8, I think it was. And at the time there was like a promotion because Samsung had their VR headset, and so you just like you plugged your phone. You basically, it was a headset without a screen. Then you put your phone, you plugged it into this device. And so your phone would act as the actual, computer, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And so you'd like, use this, and it was really cool. And it had a little controller. It was really, really cool. But yeah, and that's already how many years ago was that? Like 10 years ago, maybe a little less, you know. And it's just, and still, like, and then I would say Apple most recently was like, you know, a year ago maybe, and just it hasn't like it's never caught on. I don't really know what it is about it that like why it hasn't like become mainstream, you know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's definitely not an
For
everyday
me,
product. It's not like a product you could use in the same way you use your phone, right? As in like
no.
with your phone, you wake up, you bring it to the toilet, you know, you're using it all throughout the day. You can't do it with the VR headset. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. I think putting the VR headset on and off is still, and like then keeping it on your face for multiple hours
Right.
can get really tiresome. And I think people just don't want that yet. Maybe one day. I know. I think with the Apple VR headsets, I really didn't understand who that one was for. Like
Mm.
I really, but it's Apple, so there must be a reason, I guess. But I really didn't understand like who was ever gonna buy what was the price? Like
$3,500.
a
Yeah.
ridiculously expensive headset
Did you ever
to.
try it?
No, I didn't.
Mm.
I never did. But yeah, I think for me the killer like the killer app is Gravity Sketch, obviously, but the second one I use a lot is Beat Saber. It's just
Yeah.
rhythm games and just movement, and you're fully immersed, and you're like it's like playing tennis, but like with
Yeah.
lasers
Yeah.
everywhere, and it's like very cool. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think for gaming, it's really great already. Um, but I think for social media, I don't think I would want to do social media in VR because you have this bulky headset. I think
Right.
the point of social media, or for a lot of people, social media is something you do while you're doing other stuff, or
Mm.
like you're not really sitting down and thinking like,
I'm
right now
actively
I'm gonna do
gonna.
social media. Like
Right.
that's not really.
It's
So
more passive.
yeah, I don't think people would ever put on their headset like I'm now going to do social media. So
Well, there's that whole like metaverse push where they're like, oh, we're gonna make this like you know this
yeah,
VR environment where people can go hang out. But even that like it never caught.
but there is stuff online already like that you can go to. I don't know. I remember this Sherwood dungeon we used to play when we were
Mm-hmm.
very little, where you could hang out online. I'm sure there's other stuff like that.
Yeah, they definitely exist, but again, you're dealing with a very niche community of people who are
Yeah,
using VR headsets.
they were marketing online like they were basically marketing VR chats to moms and dads who've
Yeah,
never touched a game in their life. I don't
right.
really.
Well,
Yeah.
that's true. That's very true. Also, yeah. So getting back to like some of your work, so what are some of like the influences behind your work? Like, who are some people that you look up to as artists that you kind of have learned from and not not copied, but again have like influenced your kind of approach and style?
Yeah. Basically all like Instagram designer toy artists. The concept of designer toys, I think everyone got with Cause. Like the one you mentioned earlier with
Yeah.
the little bone sticking out of his head.
Was he the first one or the first like big one?
He's definitely the first big one who were selling these, but they all started as a graffiti artists. Like they all started as
Interesting.
street artists, Cause as well, and then they started selling toys because it was more scalable.
Yeah.
Because yeah. Um,
Now that you say
so
that, there's like I feel like there's a very similar kind of vibe to street art and designer toys.
oh yeah, there
There's definitely a lot
definitely
of
is.
crossover. I never even noticed that, but now that you mention it, like it's
Oh
very
yeah, yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely the Venn diagram is very close together.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I started out with Cause, obviously, and then all these Instagram artists, I really should go through them. I have a list somewhere because
Uh-huh.
this question keeps get popping up. I think also I'm a YouTube junkie.
Mm.
I basically live on YouTube.
Mm.
And people like 1000. I don't know if you know him.
No, not familiar.
Um, one of the biggest YouTube artists, and he just does basically everything, but I really, really like his art style. Stuff like that. Vex, he's also a Belgian guy. I really like. Let me see. Can
I
I
just
find the
found a
list?
guy on Instagram the other day. I forget his name off the top of my head. But he makes these really cool Pokemon. Like he did one called like Chonkazard, where it's like Charizard with like
Oh
this
yeah,
like
yeah.
puffer coat, you know. Those are really cool. I like that a lot. And he has some other really cool stuff. He's not only Pokemon related, but
Mm-hmm.
like his stuff is really cool. And I find designer toys to be really cool and really appealing. I mean, like obviously the good ones are the ones that are most appealing. That's why they're successful.
Oh yeah.
But like, I don't know. There's something about them that's so fun and like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting because designer toys inhabit a different space than collectibles, right? As in, like, there's definitely some crossover between designer toys and let's say Funko Pops,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not the same thing at all.
No.
It's very different markets, very different appeal. Um, yeah, so I'm kind of curious to hear from you, like in your experience, what makes like how do you start a designer toy brand? Let's put it that way, right? And somebody, let's say for myself, like somebody who wants to make their own designer toys, they want to break into the space. What's sort of the like approach to entering the designer toy space versus the collectible space, or versus just the general toy
Mm-hmm.
space?
I've actually thought about this a lot because I knew I wanted to do 3D sculpting, and I love how designer toys look, and I want to make designer toy like stuff. So I thought about I thought about copying Vandal when I started my Patreon. I thought about I think to make a designer toy brand that really works, you have to think of one character and then really build on that character. Like everything you do has to be around that character. It has to be in different settings. It has to do controversial stuff so it gets in the news, and you kind of build a character. I think that's how you're supposed to build a designer toy brand. I think what I do is more collectibles actually, kind of because
Mm-hmm.
I want to. Um, I can't stick to one character. I just can't. I want to make new stuff every time. I would get sick
Yeah.
of one character after a few weeks.
When you say one
Um,
character, you mean in the way that let's say Dunnies, like every Dunny is the
yeah.
same character, just different different art applied to it.
Mm, no, I wouldn't say Dunnies because Dunnies is how I look at Dunnies is like it's a company and they collab with different artists who put their characters on a dunny. So
Okay.
it's another outlet to put out your character into the world. I think the most recognizable designer toys are from artists who do the same character over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
But stuff like Dunnies and Super Plastic, they're more like companies that um, they work with designer toy artists. They collab
Yeah.
with them, and then it becomes this relationship where people follow Dunnies to also discover new artists and stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So again, so as the actual artist though, how do you go about and build that designer toy brand? Like
Mm,
when you say that same character, what do you mean by that? Like again, let's just take Vanthal as an example, because his stuff he kind of follows the same pattern with a lot of his characters, but they're not all exactly the same.
no. I don't know. He has a thing he does though with the kneeling. What's the
The
name?
hostages,
The
yeah,
hostages, and then also the little bottles he have. So
yeah,
he did develop something very, and I think he does have a character with the hooded guy. Is like
right. So
his
that's an
character.
example. Yeah, that's an example of like every character being the same,
Yeah, yeah.
but
So I do think he builds around his hooded guy, and then
mm-hmm,
he uses stuff from popular culture to bring
mm-hmm,
it back to his hooded guy. But
mm-hmm.
honestly, I thought about it a lot, but I've never built a real designer toy brand. So
Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't know. You would have to interview Vandal. That would be amazing. I would watch that.
Yeah. If you only show his face, that's the only problem.
Yeah, like with a mask or something. With
Yeah,
the
with the hooded guy, in his
yeah.
hood. Yeah. What's your kind of like your process, like your creative process? How do you kind of go about, when you set out, you want to make. And now I know you're kind of working this whole series of the D&D characters. So like when you're kind of sitting down to think of a new project, what's kind of your step-by-step guide of how to?
I think the best ideas definitely come at you randomly when you're doing something else.
Yeah.
D&D characters has been a post-it that's been on my wall for like 2 years before I started doing them. I think when I want to create, I look at the one thing that a lot of people get wrong about creating is that the more limited you are, the more creative you can be.
Mm-hmm.
So Gravity Sketch can't do everything. It's very hard to subtract shapes from other shapes, for example.
Interesting.
In Gravity Sketch, that's very, very difficult. And I think that makes for a really interesting environment to work with. I think now having to do D&D characters, but like transforming them into like this cartoony designer toy style is a really fun way. Like I'm limited to this probably pretty gory fantasy like creature, and now I want to make it cute and cool somehow.
Yeah.
I think that's a really like my creativity just bursts from that. If like just those limitations. I used to do the floating head things. So I just had a head and it needed to float, and there needed to be a reason for it to float. And it's just putting certain limitations on yourself is really great for being creative. So what I do now with D&D characters is I look at a lot of pictures for the characters. I go on Pinterest. I use Midjourney to generate images. And I just put them up in Gravity Sketch. And usually the first thing that pops into my head, I just try out. And if it works, I complete it. But if it doesn't work, I trash it. I just start over.
Yeah.
So I really like to start doing. I don't think very much ahead of starting to sculpt.
Yeah. Are you a big D&D fan, or you just kind of thought of the idea like this would be a good?
I've played D&D for like 6 years now, on and off. My brother is a DM and he's addicted to D&D. I'm not as much of a I'm not obsessed like he is.
Yeah.
But I do play D&D a lot. And one thing that's always bothered me about stuff like D&D and Warhammer and even Magic the Gathering, which all three I play a lot, is that the miniatures the artwork is all fantasy, and they make it as lifelike as possible. And it doesn't sit right with me. I don't like that. And I didn't understand why nobody made an anime version of all three, for example, or a designer toy version of all three. And yeah, I thought, let's just let me do that.
It's a really cool angle. I really like. I enjoy your work. I first saw, I'm not familiar with all the D&D terms, so I apologize. But the floating head, with the like it looks like Medusa.
The beholder.
Yeah, I think that was the first one I saw. Like it popped up on my Instagram Reels, and then like I went to your page and I was like checking out your stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, there you go. And also, one thing I really like about your stuff, this is as a fellow 3D printer, I love how you make everything like print in place. That's really cool. Yeah, that's like print in place, no supports. Like that's huge. Like because especially if you're kind of selling to people who are not like necessarily big into 3D printing and they're kind of doing it like on a very low level.
Yeah.
to have something that where you literally can just download it and print it and not have to worry about like, messing around and trying to make it, have it support properly and everything like that's huge. That really makes a big difference.
Definitely.
How do you kind of guarantee that? Like when you're sculpting, like especially like in Gravity Sketch, I mean, like I know like obviously there's 3D print settings, right, of like, supports on anything more than 45-degree angles, but how are you doing that? Is it just kind of like you have a feel for it because you've been doing it long enough, or do you have like a method to make sure that things don't need supports?
I think it's both. Like I said, I've been into 3D printing. It has to be for over 10 years now. I started out with one of these Chinese plastic building. They were just like CNC'd building blocks, and you had to build it yourself. It was like you were in an entire day just building your 3D printer. So I started out pretty soon, also from being a product developer, because obviously having a 3D printer with products is a very good combination. And I think I do have a very unfair advantage when it comes to insight into the 3D printing world, because I've been doing it for so long. But I think also just going over the rules while you're sculpting, like no overhangs over 45 degrees, like every time you're sculpting, when you have like a bridge kind of thing, like how long should it be? Would this work?
Right.
And then when I finish something, I edit it in Fusion 360 on the computer, and I of course put it into Bamboo Studio, and then I look like, is there any overhangs that would be a problem? Sometimes there are like little red spots that like should technically need supports, but I already know like some of those won't really need one.
Right.
And yeah, I really tried to play with the limits of 3D printing. I think, for example, for like the Mimic and the Beholder, I think people really are surprised that this can be done without supports, because it looks like there's like overhangs over here, but like everything is 45 degrees. So I think that's also like for people who have been 3D printing a lot, they will definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, the Mimic, I have to say, looks really good. I mean, like all your stuff looks great, but the Mimic, I thought really was executed perfectly. Like I really enjoyed that one.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you do everything on a Bamboo, I take it.
Yeah. These machines are amazing. I've been a Prusa fanboy for as long as I can remember, but Bamboo just knocked it out of the park with their printers. It's crazy.
Everyone talks about it. Everyone's like, literally everyone I talk to with a Bamboo is like, oh, it's the best thing ever.
And to me it was pretty obvious, actually. I mean, Prusa, I really like, for people new to 3D printing, they have to know the history of like Prusa, because Joseph Prusa basically invented the 3D printer as is, and then he made a brand, and the brand still exists, and it's one of the biggest 3D printing brands. And it is for a reason. Like they make everything open source. People know everything about their printer. It's very community driven company. And like these big 3D printer nerds are always giving feedback, and like it's an awesome way of running a company.
Yeah.
And Prusa printers are for tinkerers, like people who like to fuck around with printers and do their own stuff with it. But to me, it was so obvious that wide-scale adoption of 3D printing wasn't gonna be tinkerers. Like, I think this community, like the Prusa fans, they wanted to make everyone a tinkerer, which wasn't ever gonna happen.
Right.
So I think Bamboo just took that opportunity of making a 3D printer that you can't really fuck with. It's just like a black box, and it does what it does, and you can't do anything else, but it just works, and it's a lot cheaper because they can mass produce everything.
Right.
I think that was just a great opportunity, and it just took it, and they knocked it out of the park. Yeah.
I mean, and again, everyone I've talked to that is using Bamboo like can't stop raving about it. It's
yeah, it's awesome. It just works. It's
right.
crazy.
That's what everyone says. And then there's no bed leveling. It does all that automatically.
Yeah. But I mean, that stuff, that's the Prusa. All the Prusas can do that too. Like that's nothing new. But I think with
Right.
bamboo, what is pretty new is that, well, the multicolor is crazy.
Yeah.
It just,
Yeah.
and then um, with bamboo, the new stuff is like it's crazy cheap. Multicolor printing has never, ever, ever been this cheap.
How
And
much
also the
are
fact
bamboos? Like the X1 Carbon.
the X1 Carbon is pretty expensive, but the A1 Mini is a $350 printer. If you
Wow.
also get the AMS, so it's like the combo, it's $350 and you can do multicolor printing. I think before that it was like easily $3,000 at least
Wow.
for multicolor. So they just like, here's a printer 10 times cheaper as the next one who can
Yeah.
do this, and go ahead, play with it. And it works. Like it's not Pru- don't get me wrong, Prusa's also just work, and they didn't need tinkering anymore for a long time. So quality wise it's the same, but then bamboo was cheaper. Like they
Mm.
were just as good, and they were cheaper, and they had multicolor printing, which was
Yeah.
revolutionary. So
I know for a long time people were using Prusas for like print farms. That
oh
was like
yeah,
kind of the go-to. And now I see more and more print farms that are using X1 Carbons that are just buying, a ton of the bamboos. And like you said, the X1 Carbon's what? It's like 600. It's not like crazy expensive.
no, I don't know. I think it is 900 or something.
Yeah, I thought it was cheaper than
The
that.
P1S is 800 if you get the AMS with it. So
Uh,
I think the X1C was like 1,000 with the combo or something like that.
but even
Yeah.
still, I mean, for what it does, I mean, it's not cheap by any means, but
hmm
yeah, but still, that's not crazy for what you're getting. For what I
Oh yeah,
understand,
for
again,
sure.
I haven't
They're
like really.
all amazing printers. I can recommend them all for sure.
Yeah, have you gotten a sponsorship from them yet?
No, no.
They seem to be they've been throwing out sponsorships left and right. Everybody you watch who's like a YouTuber that does 3D printing, sponsored by Bamboo.
Are they? I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that personally because I talk to a lot of 3D print artists like Patreon people,
yeah.
and apparently Bamboo used to sponsor people, and
Mm.
then something happened. Somebody leaked something, I think, an
Oh,
artist or something,
interesting.
and then they stopped doing that. And then they got so popular that probably they don't have time to rethink their sponsorship thing. So
Interesting.
apparently it's something like that. But I've been reaching out, and because like I like these printers so much
Yeah,
that I've just been recommending them to everyone, and
yeah.
I think I basically sold like over 50 printers at this point for
Wow.
them. So
At the very least, you should get an affiliate link.
something I really want that affiliate link, but I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my first episodes of the podcast is with a guy. He calls himself. I'm trying to blank right now. Um, oh my gosh, I'm not remembering this. Give me a second. Let me pull it up. But he does. He does a lot of 3D printing content. He does. His whole thing is like Pokemon 3D print stuff, like Pokemon 3D print projects. Big Rig Creates. That's his name. Can't believe
Hmm.
I forgot that. BIGRIG Creates. Um, he makes really cool stuff. It's like functional 3D prints that are Pokemon related. Um, and I think he got a sponsorship from Bamboo, and there's a lot of people who are doing this that I've seen online or have been getting these Bamboo sponsorships. I was amazed at how they're just kind of like throwing these sponsorships around. I was kind of surprised, but
One day.
yeah, right.
One day.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of YouTube, or is it mostly on like Instagram and Discord? Like, where's your biggest community?
Right now it's because well, in numbers it's still Twitter from the NFT
Mm,
days, but in engagement it's definitely Instagram.
interesting.
Um, and I also have a Discord with like 8,000 people in it. But yeah, since I've switched niches. It's the
It's
old
not as
platform,
active.
like Discord and Twitter, are a bit less active than my
Yeah.
Instagram, which is pretty popping right now. I'm really happy
Yeah.
with it.
How
So
do you kind of build that engagement? What have you found works for you?
I think the main thing for me, which was surprising, is having a thing. Like now I make D&D minis, and everything I post is about D&D minis. And there's a huge community looking for D&D minis, and just they see this and they think, oh, I don't follow this guy, and I'm so into D&D, I have to follow this guy. I think that's for me has been the main thing. But also the other stuff that people keep telling you is like consistency, posting 3 reels a week and then 1 carousel, stuff like that. All the basics are also very important. But I really did notice a huge difference from when I was just being an artist and like making whatever I felt like at that point. I had like the entirety of last year, I was just making stuff here and there. I was really looking for something to do. But then when I switched to doing D&D minis only, when I made 1 reel where I was like, okay, you guys love this so much, I'm going all in, I'm doing the entire monster manual. I felt like that was a pivotal point where people were like, okay, I gotta follow this guy because his stuff is awesome, and I like D&D, stuff like that. So
I think that's actually the reel that I found you on. That's funny.
Probably,
yeah. No, I've seen that for sure. Like, I like this. There's that guy I was talking to before we started recording. You know, his whole thing was like, he did a whole like print them all series where he took like a chart of like all 151 original Pokemon and just printed each one, you know, one by one.
I've seen that, yeah, nice.
And now like a lot of people have copied that, but like that, I think he's one of the first that really did that. And
awesome.
he built his channel to be huge because, like you're saying, it's like if you have a thing, it really helps kind of like lock people in, and you know, because you kind of tap into that fan base, and again, if they already like the thing, they're, you know, you're gonna funnel them right in pretty easily. Do you engage with your community pretty actively?
Oh yeah, definitely. I still reply to everything.
Nice.
I answer all DMs, especially in Discord. I'm there all the time chatting with everyone. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's also like a huge part about it is like the whole community aspect. You know, like people love that, and you know, if you can actively engage with the community, I think that's huge. I think that's like what people are looking for a lot of times. You know,
yeah, for sure.
Especially in today's day and age, and when there's so much content out there, you know, like what separates the good from the great is the engagement. That's for what I've seen.
Definitely, yeah. I think it used to be with like subscriber models, where you just follow one creator, but that's like completely gone now. It's all algorithmic recommendations. So as a creator, you also have to get people into places like Discord as much as you can, because you need to somehow build a core following and like get feedback from people, which is really difficult to do if you're just making TikToks or Reels or whatever. Yeah,
that's something I've been like really kind of like toying with recently. The whole like building a community aspect to like specifically with this podcast, because like I really want this to be a platform for, you know, for artists, designers to kind of come and to meet each other and meet other people, and like to like that kind of communal aspect to it. You know, and so it's like I'm trying to kind of like figure out what makes like a good community, and like how do you kind of really, you know, get that engagement and get people excited to be there. Because, you know, like since like I've seen Discord servers where you go on and nothing's doing, or like nobody's active, and so it's like, okay, I don't want to be here. Like why am I staying on the server? You know, but when you go to a server where it's active and everyone's participating and everyone's kind of, you know, giving each other feedback, whatever that the server's about, it's so much more. You want to be there, you know. You want to be part of the conversation.
Definitely,
you know, and it's really cool. It's really cool, and it's my question is like, what's going to be the next thing? Because this model's already been around for like a while in internet terms, and it's like, okay, like these trends only last for so long. So like, what's kind of the next step? And I don't know, you know, like, and obviously if I did know, you know, like, you know, you can tap into it.
What's the next trend after Discord, or?
Yeah, just in general, like what's the next logical step? Like obviously Discord's around, and it's been around for a while. It's like, but look at Facebook, right? Like Facebook was around for a number of years. It was the app to be at. And now the only people on Facebook are like 40-year-old plus, you know, who are using it like, you know, like moms using it like, you know, it's not the place to be anymore.
No.
Right. And it was what, 15 years that like it was it had its heyday, not even,
Mm-hmm.
so these things don't last forever. That's just the nature of things in general, especially with the internet. And so already Discord's been the thing for a number of years now. And like I've been trying to think of like, now there's a lot of like live streaming. That's very in, that's kind of the big, the big thing. But again, all these things I feel like maybe aren't on their way out yet, but I think they're starting to stale. And it's just like trying to like think like what comes next? Like what's the next logical step in terms of, I don't know, being a more active community. If I don't know, like I can share some ideas that I've been thinking about off air, but
Yeah, okay,
yeah, this is like,
go ahead. I personally I love Discord, so I'm not really looking for something else right now, but I'm interested to hear
yeah,
in what you're what you're looking at.
no, I'm not saying I have ideas like to replace Discord. I'm just saying like I was over the last couple of days I've been kind of like
You want to get
mulling
on the
over in my
next
mind.
whatever is the next train, you want to be on it early. So
For sure,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
like, but again, specifically in regards to this show, like how to make something that's like super engaging, as
hmm
in not like super community where it's like really like, again, you want to be there. It's not a passive thing. It's an active thing. Like
yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
really kind of the future. I think. I don't know. I'm totally speculating here. Obviously, like nobody knows what the future holds, but that's kind of like so this has been like this puzzle I've been mulling over for the last few days.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I
um,
think how I look at it is like we're like stupid economic terms again, but like there's a funnel, and then at
yeah,
the top of the funnel there's like reels, because people are just scrolling reels all day,
right,
and that's where you discover someone, and you in the reels you have to get them to comment. Like that's like they engage with you, so they tell the algorithm, okay, show me more of this guy. Okay, so if they comment or like, that's the next step, and then you have to get them to follow, and then they're in. So then they might see a carousel, or they might read a description, and they might click on your profile, might maybe click your links. That would be awesome. And when they get to your links, you want to send them to something that's free. So a lot of people used to do email
yeah,
lists,
the newsletters and
newsletters and stuff like that. Um, I I think it's still. I think I should be doing mailing lists, but
hmm
I haven't yet because I don't know. I don't know why I should. But I send them to Discord as much as possible, or Patreon. Like if maybe they're already willing to pay, but then Discord, and then. But in Discord, you get your core community and you turn your
right,
cold leads into warm leads, or like over time on Instagram, if people see a lot of your stuff and they start trusting you, then it becomes a warm lead, and they might buy something from Patreon. Um, and then you have the core community who like really follow everything you do, and they are in Discord all day, every day. I I used to have that. Well, I still kind of have that in Discord. But like I said, there's a bit of a transition going on
yeah,
from NFTs to 3D printing. Some people kind of lost interest because all the conversation is about 3D printing now.
mm,
I was able to get a lot of my core fans from NFTs into 3D printing. I gave away a bunch of 3D printers as well. So they're still conversing. But yeah, I think what people have always told me, but I don't fully understand it yet, from NFTs is that by being 100% honest and like replying to everything honestly in my Discord, if people have questions, and like I show that I want to I want to help everyone as much as I can, and if I can't, then I explain why, stuff like that. There's like a vibe, and then
hmm
that vibe fosters a community because people, um, yeah, I don't know. People have told me that they loved that I was so active and that I was so honest in my Discord,
yeah,
and that's why they stuck around. And then like friend groups within the Discord, within your community, start being created. Like people start talking with each other. There's like private groups. People start gaming with each other, And I
Yeah.
think that's really what you want. Like you want to
You want to foster a
somehow,
bigger community, like,
yeah,
foster a community where it kind of breaks down into sub communities almost.
yeah,
For sure.
definitely.
No, for sure. That's yeah, but again, like the it's trying to figure out how to make it engaging. That's the big puzzle
Hmm.
piece, I think, that like that really kind of separates the people who are successful in like building communities and not. And I mean, you see the people who are successful, those who are engaging, who are whatever it is, live streaming and holding kind of like these like live chat sessions, whatever it is that they're doing, but the people feel like they have a relationship with the creator directly.
Hmm.
Like that's I think it's really I think that is definitely a big part of the puzzle. From what I've seen as an outsider, like without trying to do it myself yet. That's kind of what I've noticed.
I think how I've been able to do it, I think, is uh, you provide people to engage. Like you provide people ways to engage, and then you respond sometimes too honest.
Mm.
Like you're really not keeping any secrets. You're not like
Yeah, not gatekeeping, as they
not
say.
gatekeeping anything. You're just being real because people want to know stuff from you because you're maybe at a place that they want to be in a few years.
Right.
And some people will keep their secrets very close to the chest. Um, but I just feel like it's better to just be an open book about everything. And yeah, I ask a lot of questions in my Instagram stories, and then people ask questions, and I reply to them in the DMs. If people ask me a question that I really do know the answer to, I try to like really help them understand, like not just explain or like point them in some direction, but I like try to help them understand how I did what I did or stuff like that. Like usually
Yeah.
it's like I'm an aspiring artist. How do I start? Where do I begin? How did you do this? And then I respond. I feel like those people that you were able to really help, they will become core community
Right.
almost instantly.
Right.
And when those people get into your Discord and start talking with other people that you've been able to help along the way, like that's magic. I think just something happens, a spark flies, and
Yeah.
and that's how community is created.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Also with NFTs, it's been a complete roller coaster. There's been ups and downs. It's like a marketplace and stuff, and it's like prices, and people are scared. And like in times where people are scared, the fact that I let them know, like, guys, I'm still here. I'm doing this, and this. Like people,
So it reassures them. They
I don't know.
feel.
It's yeah, they start to
Yeah.
trust you and stuff like that. I feel like that's how I kind of been able to do it.
Do you think NFTs are gonna ever come back?
Yeah, definitely. I think NFTs as a technology is amazing still. Um, I think blockchain is fantastic. I am very much a Bitcoin believer. Um, and yeah, so NFTs as a technology are definitely gonna come back. Like just the most secure way of putting like a label on something, like
Yeah.
this is mine, this is verified, this comes from my wallet, so it's real. Stuff like that's gonna be there. That's gonna have applications forever.
Yeah.
Um,
Certificate of
NFTs as they
authenticity.
are now, like with the monkey pictures and stuff like that, I think I don't know. It might have a comeback. Um, Also, a lot of them like didn't die yet. Like people think NFTs just died and went away, but a lot of them are still worth a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But are people still buying them? As if it's worth a lot, but no one's buying it. Is it really worth anything?
but people are buying them still.
Really?
But it's just the big ones, just the big projects, because all the small projects they well, like me, I did it for the royalties, the royalty thing, where like artists get paid when someone sells your art, you get
Right.
a small piece of that. And that was why small artists could also do this. Like you didn't really need to sell much necessarily to make money doing
Right.
NFTs. And that was amazing for the art community. But then ever since royalties went away, I've just seen one artist after the other. It's been really sad actually to just see everyone just leave, because like there's this community of people who are like, okay, you're our artists, we love you, we have art from you, and we want to see you get popular. But you're there like, yeah, okay, sorry guys, I now have to sell you guys more stuff because there's no money
Right.
anymore coming in.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, nobody likes it because the promise used to be there's royalties. So I don't know, if royalties come back, I will fully believe in the concept of NFTs again. I think the thing was amazing. But I think the average NFT enthusiast right now doesn't care at all about royalties, doesn't care about artists. They just care about making as much money as fast as they can.
Yeah.
And they want to scam people as much as they can. And
Well, you're seeing that with like all the meme coins. That's kind of the latest
it's
trends.
terrible. I think
like
meme coins ruined everything, to be honest. I hate it so much. I don't know.
It's interesting. It's an interesting time in this whole like space. It's we're definitely going through a very transitional period in a lot of things, and it'll be interesting to see how things look on the other side. I think we're going to come out the other side in a very different world. Better or worse, I couldn't tell you. But definitely different. Like I think, and just in a lot of things, I think it's just the whole world is kind of going through this like weird, a metamorphosis.
Oh yeah.
So it'll be kind of interesting how things look on the other side.
Definitely.
Yeah. So what about like with art toys? Where do you kind of see that heading? Because that seems to be really just hitting its stride now. I mean, like I said, when I was in Germany for this, there was a toy expo, and it was like a trade show. It's like one of the biggest ones in the world, and so all the companies are there. Like the Hasbros and Mattels, and like every toy company basically is there. And they have like speakers and et cetera, et cetera. And I'd say one of the biggest focuses of the show and like of all the speakers, they were all talking about the trend of what they call kidults. Basically adults buying toys.
Right.
Because it's an undeniable part of the market now. I've repeated this already a number of times, but there's some statistic that I think it was 2023 or 2024, must have been 20, I don't know, one of those 2 years was the first time that adults ages 18 plus surpassed children in the purchasing of toys. So like it's definitely, I think we're just kind of hitting the like the stride of the kind of adult oriented toy. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. Like as somebody in the art toy space, which is a little bit different, but still there is definitely this crossover. What are your thoughts on kind of like the whole art toy trend?
I love the creator industry. I love people being able to, from their bedroom, make something and then try to somehow make money online through making stuff. Which is why I love Patreon, which is why I loved NFTs, because it used to be about supporting small artists and giving people a chance to make something really cool and go big.
Yeah.
I think the problem with designer toys has been for a long time that it's really hard to get into, which is why it was basically only for already established street artists. Like all the popular designer toys from the 90s and from the early 2000s, they were from people who had already made it in some way. Because you have to order big quantities, like the vinyl toy, yeah, everyone knows and loves, like the matte plastic stuff. You have to have them made in a factory. The molds have to be made, and because these molds are so expensive, you have to basically sell like at least 2,000 for it to be even
To
worth.
break even.
Like, yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's. I looked for it at a certain point. I've been into contact with Chinese factories to do this, and I think it was, for me, it was like 1,500 to break even. And I thought like maybe I can sell 700, but like not this many. So I ended up not going through with it, even though I already had somewhat of a following, and I already knew people wanted to spend money to get art of mine. But I was like, I don't think, I think this will be a loss if I go through with it. So it's really the fact that these molds and the fact that um, the way it's fabricated as such a toy, it really gatekeeps from new people joining the designer toy space. And I think that's.
But do you think that's still true today? I feel like I see a lot of the designer toy people I see on Instagram, for example, are kind of doing it more and more with just like resin printing and kind of doing it themselves, printing it themselves and painting it themselves, and then doing limited runs of 100, let's say, where you don't have that same kind of it's not the same level of expense.
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like 3D printing opens this up completely. I think that's why I love 3D printing so much, because it gives everyone the opportunity to make toys. It used to be all resin, and there's a lot of people, like the people who are selling designer toys. What they probably do is they 3D print a test model, and then they sand it, and then it's all really smooth, and then they make their own silicone mold. In which they pour some kind of plastic. It might be vinyl, it might be something else. And then they paint the toys themselves because it will be colorless. Or it's in parts, and then there's some really beautiful videos out there of people assembling parts and having like all their parts on like little sticks and making it's awesome. But still, that's like really time consuming. Like if you want to do this, like your character better be really popular. Like whatever you're selling, whatever you're making in these big quantities, whatever you're spending weeks, months of your time on creating, better be popular. It better sell, and it better sell for a lot, because it's quite expensive making it. You're putting a lot of time into it. So that's why I love the idea of multicolor 3D printing. And Bamboo has this matte PLA, which I use, and I think it kind of looks like vinyl toy aesthetic. So I'm completely in love with them. I have them on my desk, and I sometimes can't stop looking at them.
Do you think people would look at a FDM print the same way they would look at a resin print? In terms of the consumer, as in, if I'm buying a product and I get a 3D printed, on an FDM, even if it's bamboo and it looks great and it's multicolored, versus like the resin has just that nicer finish to it.
I don't know. I don't think I like vinyl toys. I don't know. I have this weird link or twist in my brain that from a young age, I had this tiny, tiny little Pikachu when I was young, and I just used to stare at it and I just play with it. I don't know. And like that, the vinyl toy aesthetic, like where it's like a little bendy, like a little rubbery and like matte, I think I personally love that. Yeah. And I think the closest to that for 3D printing is FDM. And I think resin is very brittle. If you drop it, it just breaks, stuff like that.
Interesting.
I don't know, but
you think FDM is closer to vinyl than
I personally do think
resin.
that. But then again, it doesn't have to be the end product. Like you can, me, for example, I've made thousands of characters at this point. I haven't made one, and to be honest, if I had to make one designer toy, I'd have some ideas. I have some favorites, but I don't think I could stick to one. Like you have to stick to one, and you have to make one like 2,000 times, and then you have to sell one 2,000 times. But the thing is, you can't get popular doing just that. You have to first be somebody before you can sell 2,000 toys. So I think in the future with multicolor printing, when the technology is going to be better and everything like that, I think people will I think artists will start out with multicolor printing. They'll probably still have supports and all that, but like they'll start out making different toys in multicolor printing. And then when they hit like their golden toy, their golden idea, when people just love something so much, that's a point where maybe they have enough followers and enough stuff like that to just commit to one toy. And maybe they'll start with resin pouring first, and then they'll go to factory and stuff. That's the only way I see, right now at least, that's the only way I see a real creator economy in designer toys existing, I think.
Interesting.
Because right now it's just too difficult to get into. Like if you want to be inside in the painter economy, if you want to be in the sticker economy, stuff like that, it's pretty accessible at this point. But like making a toy is still really inaccessible. But there might be very talented people out there with very creative ideas. And I think printing, multicolor FDM printing, where you don't have to spend hours painting.
Yeah.
I think that could be a really cool way to get started. I don't know.
I mean, I've seen it for myself. Like with the Bulbasaur headphone stand that I showed you. You know, like a lot of people have reached out to me because they want to buy it, and it's, you know, enough people that I'm like, it's cool, and I'm like, I'm flattered that people like it so much, but it's not enough that it'd be worth it to, you know, go to a factory and to start producing it in mass. Especially once you start mass producing things, then you get into also the issues of like IP and licensing. You know, you don't want to you don't want to go spend all this money and then get a cease and desist, and now you're stuck with 2,000 units that you can't do anything with.
Yeah,
you know?
Definitely. Yeah.
So like, that's also part of it, I think. But no, it's an interesting outlook that you have. Do you think that we're gonna get to a point where it's gonna be so mainstream? I guess, you know, we're already kind of there. You kind of have these like mainstream, you know, designer toys that kind of people with not such large followings are able to break into it and you know, sell their work. You know.
Yeah. I think we're starting to get there. Yeah, definitely. I think through 3D printing, resin pouring, stuff like that, we're getting more and more people who are fully committing. But it's still like these people still took a big risk and like spend a lot of their time doing what they do. And then they probably, well, the ones you see are the ones that got lucky. I think. So I don't know. I believe in 3D. I tend to have strong visions, and I think this FDM thing, just seeing them on my desk, and like all I had to do was press a button, and like the next day they just existed. Yeah, I don't know. It's magic. It's magic. So
yeah, I have a few FDM prints on my desk. I showed you the Bulbasaur. I have this also. Let me grab it here. I haven't like 1 second. I haven't like published it yet, but so you see it here first. It was this little Marowak.
Oh, nice! That looks awesome.
It's a little pen holder.
Oop. Oh no!
I haven't glued it on yet. But like it was like I created it for like my my Wacom tablet. So he holds my Wacom tablet pens. I call it Marowacom. That's like a little
nice
little fun there.
Awesome.
So I've done like a number of like these like FDM and they're great. I have an Ender 3 S1 Pro, so it's only printing single colors. Then I do everything is like this whole head is all, you know, it's all hand painted. So it's not scalable. I can't go and you know, sit there painting 100 of them, and you know, it's not unless I'm charging a fortune for each one, it's not worth it.
Yeah,
you know. So it's no, I think you're definitely onto something. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things play out, and just in general, like with the. And there's the people who make whole businesses out of selling FDM prints. I mean, like, this is one guy on Instagram who sells Pokeballs that are like these, you know, like...
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and like, he literally just prints them out, assembles them, and sells them, you know, and, you know, so it's definitely...
But it's a job in itself. Like, people ask me all the time where they can buy my prints, but I spend all my time sculpting and putting them online. Trying to make that into a business. I don't have time to mass produce and package and send everything. And that's why I think Patreon is pretty beautiful, because people can buy the commercial rights from me and start their own shops if they want. And if they do, then I will advertise the shit out of them, because if people see someone can set up a good shop with my product, then other people will want to do it. So it's again this like really cool interplay community of like creators and sellers working together. I really like that. Like maybe one day I'll branch out. I'll hire someone who can operate a print farm of my minis and send them to people. Maybe one day, but it won't be me. I need to spend all my time sculpting the things.
Yeah, so. That's the thing with these. It is a business, you know, and so to scale it up, you can't do it. You can't do it single-handedly. It's just not possible. Mm-hmm. You know, like there's not enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
You know, but there's definitely the resources available now that like it's doable. You know, like anybody could do it. You know, just it's a matter of finding the right team, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but there's tons of print farms out there, and there's this one company I found on Instagram. They call themselves Wiglets.
Yeah.
And you seen them?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And so they have literally it's a print farm of bamboo, you know, X1Cs, and they're just printing out, you know, thousands of these things.
Yeah, it's really cool to see.
And yeah, it's great, you know, like
and that isn't easy to do, you know, like that's like a business in itself. Like they have to advertise themselves, and they have a whole operation going. So
yeah, but again, it's a business, and you see it's a whole team. It's not one person. You know, like yeah. It's also it's pretty like you are pressing a button and telling them to print, but it's still physical labor as well. Right, you need a team to do all that. Like it's still So let me ask you, just get back to like the creative side of things. Like how do you know when to like go through with a project versus to abandon it? As in, as you're working on something, how do you determine if this is something that actually can go somewhere, or this is something that's not? Like you touched upon it at the beginning with sometimes when you're working in VR, sometimes you just scrap a project. How do you kind of figure out when something is worth pursuing or when it's just, you know, this is not going anywhere?
That's a good question. I think for the answer that pops into my head is that it's like a vibe. I think like this looks shit and I don't want it or something. Like I don't want to put my name on it.
Yeah.
And then again, I have made so much stuff over the years. Like I also am not a perfectionist. Like I think one of my biggest strengths as an artist is that I am not a perfectionist. Like people will just work on one thing over and over and they keep perfecting it.
Yeah.
But like at a certain point, the payoff of working longer on something becomes really, really diminished, and you start spending hours and hours and hours on something that really doesn't really matter.
Right.
So I do think also me sculpting in VR, I can make something really fast. So I can just scrap something and then make something else. And then within one day, I'll have more than one sculpt, basically, if I'm really into it, if I'm into the zone. But yeah, I don't know. I think if I just can't get it to work, I think I don't know, just from loving designer toys, loving Pokemon growing up, stuff like that, I have a good feeling. I think it's just art style. I'm just trying to explain art style in general, the word art, like it's my art style. If I know what I don't want something to look like more than I know what I do want something to look like. So if it looks off, if it doesn't look like a designer toy to me, then I'll be like, okay, this isn't good enough. If something looks like it could be a designer toy, if I would see something at a store and I would like linger and like look at it a bit, like, ooh, this is pretty cool, then it's good enough.
Yeah.
If I would just skip it and like write it off as like, this is something that is just this could be a random toy instead of like a designer toy that would pique my interest, then I would skip it. Stuff like that. Yeah. I think it's just it's art style. I think
right. Just to get a feel, having the feel.
Yeah. Like, why do I create stuff in the style that I do? It's just because I really like that style myself. So yeah.
Do you ever do any, kind of circling back to community, do you ever do any kind of collaborations with other artists and kind of work on developing creative relationships with other artists? Do you focus on that a lot, or are you mostly focusing on just kind of your followers and your fans?
With NFTs, that was very important, like the most important thing in growing. Collaborating with other cool artists doing stuff, and then you have like this overflow in communities. That happens when you do that. Now with Patreon, it's been a little more difficult. I haven't done a collab. I have reached out for collabs, but it seems like with Patreon, people don't dare to take the risk or something. I feel like a lot of Patreon artists have their thing, and their community gets kind of mad when they don't do their thing exactly.
Interesting.
And I think that's why, I don't know, I should ask around. I'm in a few Discords with other Patreon artists. But yeah, I've reached out for doing collabs, but it's been more difficult to like, people are like, okay, I would want to do this, but then like getting a good idea and then actually going through with it has been more difficult, because in the NFT space, it was kind of, the more collabs you do, the more you grow. So everyone was just doing them. So
yeah, I hear that. Yeah, no, it's I don't know. To me, the art toy space is really cool. It's a really, again, just to circle back on one thing they said, towards the beginning, about kind of the Venn diagram with street art. I think you really nailed it with that. 'Cause I never noticed that, but as soon as you said that, like, it clicked. I was like, oh yeah, of course. Like,
yeah,
it's like the new age street art. Like at a time when everyone's on their computers, it's like street art, but on your computer.
Oh yeah.
Like people aren't necessarily, it's the new age street art. That's so good. I love it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. All right, so one last question is, then we'll wrap it up. And that is, this is a question I post to all my guests, and that is, how do you define success?
How do I define success? I'm gonna give the exact same answer as Aiden Haynes, I think. Aiden Hines. I don't know. Being able to do what you want to do and get paid for it, like, obvious, like that's I've always been pretty confused about what I wanted to do, because I thought art was not really an option. But when kids ask me now, like, how did you know what you wanted to do? Or like, or if people ask, like, I have no clue what I really want to do, or like, I'm just doing whatever puts bread on the table. I asked them, who did you think, as a child, who did you think were like the coolest people on earth? Like, and for me, that was graffiti artists, 100%. Like, people who could do graffiti art and make money doing that. Like, I thought that was amazing. And then later, YouTubers, I thought was really cool. Like, I think a lot of people relate to that. A lot of people want to be YouTubers these days. Yeah. And then I stumbled upon Blob Labs, which is this designer toy artist that does Patreon as well. And I love that. I love those toys. And then I was like, okay, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I want to do that. And I think the answer to what do you want to do is like, just the people, you probably want to do what you think the coolest people on earth are doing. That might be astronauts for you. It might be police officers. It might be something completely different. But for me, that was art. It's always been artists being able to make money doing what they love. So for me, that's exactly what it is. Like, for me, success is being able to keep making art, which is what I love to do, which is what I love to show, like, just make something and then show it to people, and then have as many people see that thing as humanly possible. That's what brings me joy in life. And right now that means getting 300 Patreons. So everyone subscribe to my Patreon.
What do you got now?
55, I think.
All right. A little ways to go. But...
Yeah, a little ways to go. I think my goal is by the end of the year, 300.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you got great stuff. I gotta say, like I really love your work, and I think you're doing really cool stuff. So I think 300 is gonna be not too difficult for you to hit.
Hell yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Where can everybody find you? Socials, Patreon, all the.
I'm SuperPrints everywhere. So Patreon, SuperPrints, and then SuperPrints 3D on Instagram. I'm sure you'll post links.
Yeah.
Discord is discord.gg/superprints. You can ask me anything on there. I'm in there all day. So
Awesome.
if you have more questions,
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, and hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah.